What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the Game Week 1 preview, a video I'm going to do every single game week throughout this season, covering the latest news, hot topics, and answering your questions. So let's get into it. So let's start with Benjamin Šeško. Man United's new number 9 has been priced at 7.5 million, which I think is a fair price. Some people see that as underpriced, but I think that's because they're comparing him to Gyökeres or Ekitike, and ultimately I don't think he's as good as those players based off the stats from last season. Now, I won't pretend I've seen all three of them in action in loads of games because I haven't, but in the Bundesliga last year, Šeško put up 0.32 expected goals per 90, which is okay, but it's not much to get that excited about. Plus, he's not going into a team like Arsenal or Liverpool that are fighting for the league. He's going into Man United. So 7.5 is fair. It's far from essential territory. I think there is a good chance that he'll start in game week 1 against Arsenal at home. Højlund, the only other real number 9 in that squad, didn't even start in the final pre-season game. Ruben Amorim used Mason Mount up front. So if Šeško is fit enough, I think he'll be in the team. But wait and see what Amorim says because it's not guaranteed. Ultimately, I would ignore him for game week 1 squads. The first 3 fixtures for Man United are not bad. Arsenal at home, Fulham away, Burnley at home. But again, nothing to get that excited about. And then it's Man City away, Chelsea at home. I think for 7.5 million, you go and buy João Pedro or Mateta or Chris Wood. You know what you're getting from those players. If you want to go for Bruno because he's consistent in the league, or in Burma or Cunha because you've seen what they've done before in the Premier League, then fair enough. But with Šeško for 7.5, it's just not enticing enough for me to go there in game week 1 with those fixtures when I can just go and get someone already Premier League proven for the same price. So I asked for people to give me questions and topics for this video. The one player people wanted me to talk about the most by far was Jack Grealish. Now, at the time of recording, he's not officially an Everton player, but it looks inevitable that that transfer is going to happen, and it might have happened by the time you watch this video. Is he a good option at 6.5 million? Potentially. He would interest me, but probably not for game week 1, and that's because I wouldn't be sure that he's going to start, because he hasn't had a proper pre-season. Now, there's a reason that Everton are agreeing to pay a large majority of the wages, if not all of them. They really want him, and I'm sure David Moyes will use him in that left-wing role quite a lot. Will it be in game week 1? I'm not sure. And even if you told me he's definitely going to start in 2, 3, and 4, he's not that good that I want to risk him being off the bench in game week 1. So I think for now, you can probably ignore him. But obviously, we all remember what he is capable of, especially in an Aston Villa shirt. That's what most people go back to. So there is interest there, but not right at the start. I want to see what his fitness is like, what his minutes are, and stuff like that. There is obviously knock-on effects to other players as well. Jack Grealish, presumably, is being brought in to play on the left side, which is where Njai plays a lot. Now, is Njai going to go and play centre forward, which he's done before? Is he going to play number 10? In which case, what happens with Dewsbury Hall? Is Njai just going to get pushed to the right? I don't know. For what it's worth, Njai is definitely going to start in game week 1. I've got no doubts about that. And he probably will continue to start. And he's on penalty, so he's still a good option. But I guess because of this news, there might be a slight reduction in his minutes. If Dewsbury Hall has been brought in to play in that number 10 role quite consistently, and Grealish is playing on the left, then of course Njai can just play on the right, but you've got McNeil, Alcaraz, you've got other players that can take minutes. Those early subs for Njai could continue to happen. Because after his injury last season, he wasn't consistently playing 90 minutes. So I think Njai does become a slightly worse pick because of Grealish, but it wouldn't necessarily put me off having him in my squad. And Grealish himself, I think, is a wait and see. I don't think at 6.5 million he's in absolute bargain territory or anything like that. Quick reminder, there's only 2 days to go until the game week 1 deadline. It's time to start making sure those teams are looking good. You can get your team rated for free over on the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub using the link in the description below or scanning the QR code on screen. My favourite thing about this tool is how quick and easy it is to get your team in. So I'm simply just going to upload mine from a screenshot on my phone, and then the tool will automatically populate the team. All I've got to do is click Save Plan and then Optimize, and it will give me my team rating. For this team, it's 96%, which is pretty decent. Another feature of this tool that you can use is the AI Transfers button, which is just at the top. If I click that, it's going to look through the team that I've just uploaded and then suggest players that it thinks should be in instead. So in this case, instead of Nico Williams, it's recommending Van de Ven. You don't have to go for it, but it's always nice to get a second opinion. There's loads of other tools and features available on the app and website as well. You've got Opta stats, you've got player points predictions, a fixture ticker, price changes, player comparisons, and all sorts. And if you sign up right now, there is 50% off. And if you sign up and don't win your mini league this season, you will get your money back. Terms and conditions apply. I'll leave all the links you need in the description below. I also wanted to quickly talk about Savinho. David Ornstein tweeted the other day to say that Tottenham are in talks with Man City to sign Savinho. Man City not actively wanting to sell, but a €50 million deal is being discussed. The 21-year-old is open to the move, and Pep Guardiola tends not to block players if they want out. Now, this is not to say that Savinho is going to become this amazing option that you should consider, because even if he signed, he's not going to start game week 1, and then it's City away in game week 2. So for FPL, he's not an option. And by the way, did anyone else just not realise he's 7 million? I just assumed he was 6.5 like most of the others. But anyway, the reason I bring this up is because a lot of people still own Kudus, and this would worry me that they're still trying to sign wingers. Now, obviously, they need depth because they're in the Champions League this year. Savinho can play left and right. So it might be that Kudus plays on the right, Savinho on the left in games. But Savinho's main position, from what I've looked at, is right wing. So now there's even more competition for that space. They've also got players like Tell that can play wide, Odebear as well. And I don't think Kudus is going to play centrally in that number 10 role, because there's still links with Eze going to Spurs as well. And presumably if he comes in, that's the role that he would play. So I know Kudus, there was a lot of hype about him at the start of pre-season. That's kind of died down a bit, but his ownership is still over 20%. I think he will start in game week 1. We'll get a good indication of the starting 11 based off the Super Cup, which is happening tonight when you watch this video. I just think the early substitutions are definitely there. I think the idea of him coming in and playing 80 to 90 every week like he did at West Ham, I'm just not sure that's going to happen. And as we'll talk about in a minute, I think there's better 6.5s. And a big reason for that is Spurs trying to sign more wingers. So I know the game was on Sunday, but I wanted to quickly talk about the Community Shield and what it might mean for Palace and Liverpool players in our Game Week 1 squads, because I've not had a chance to discuss it in any other videos so far this week. Crystal Palace lined up as you would expect. 3-4-2-1 formation. Dean Henderson in goal. Back 3, Richards, Lacroix and Gay. Gay went off with an injury. I don't know how bad it is. We'll see what Glasner says this week. There's also still links that he might move away from Palace this summer. Now, potentially at 4.5 million, he becomes a better option wherever he goes, but it's not a guarantee. Like if he went to Newcastle, for example, then he probably goes straight into the team. If he goes to Liverpool, he doesn't necessarily get in ahead of Konate. So I think I would avoid Gay at this point. Steve Parish said something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing a lot here, but essentially, it's better to get money for him this summer than to lose him next summer for free. So unless he's going to sign a new contract, which looks unlikely, he could well go in the next 3 weeks. So I would avoid Gay. Then Munoz and Mitchell wing backs. I think Munoz is a great option if you want to start the season with him. If not, have a plan for when you might want to get him. Forest at home in 2, Sunderland at home in 4. And we know what he's capable of from an attacking point of view. And then Saranese behind Mateta. Now, the interesting thing that happened in this game is Mateta took a penalty ahead of Eze. Now, they do look like they're going to continue to share penalties, but the fact that Mateta scored and then scored in the shootout and Eze missed makes it much more likely that he takes the next one. So I think that now makes Mateta an even better option for our forward line, especially with Nketiah injured as well. His minutes should be good. Eze, I would ignore. There are still links that he might move to Arsenal or even Spurs. If he goes to Spurs, I think he's an interesting option because his minutes will be great. If he goes to Arsenal, I'm less sure about that. So I would just avoid him. And Sarr at 6.5 million, I think, is a really good option. One thing to say about Palace, since that game, we've now learned they're going to be in the Europa Conference League next year, which means they've got a match between game weeks 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, which is obviously extra matches that other teams don't have. I don't know if that's a huge issue. Yes, it's a midweek game. There's going to be some travel, but it's right at the start of the season. It's not like they've had half a season campaign and then they're playing extra matches. And they have been playing their full strength team for a few games in pre-season already. So if anything, it could help with match fitness. So I wouldn't let that put you off Palace players. But if you're already not sure about them, then maybe just ignore them because of those extra matches. But I think for me, I'll still be considering Palace players. Munoz, Sarr, Mateta and Lacroix are probably the main ones, but I don't mind Richards at 4.5 as well. With Liverpool, they lined up pretty much as you would expect, especially from, you know, the interesting players from an FPL point of view. Kirke's left back, Frimpong right back, Bradley's got an injury at the moment, Van Dijk and Konate, then Salah, Wirtz, Gakpo behind Ekitike. Ekitike just has to be ignored in my opinion because of Isak. I'm recording this on Tuesday morning. David Ornstein's tweeted to say that Isak will not play for Newcastle again. It seems certain that he's going to be a Liverpool player by the end of the window. I just don't know exactly when. And as soon as he comes in, Ekitike's minutes are just a bit of an issue. So I would ignore him for 8.5. If Isak wasn't coming and Ekitike was nailed, he's a brilliant option. But is it worth that short-term risk? You get him for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you hit Burnley away in game week 4. All of a sudden, you want Isak instead. Salah blanked, yellow card, missed a penalty in the shootout. Everyone talking about he was too wide, it's not really working. Maybe that's the case. Maybe now Trent's not there for that creativity. Salah will be a worse option. But the idea that we should completely change our minds on him because of one game is nonsense, to be honest with you. If you were already considering, though, Salah, fair enough. But if you've completely changed your opinion because of one blank against Crystal Palace, I just don't think that's good FPL play. So I think Salah's still a brilliant option. Wirtz is going to get really good minutes. He's going to get assists. He's going to get goals. I like him at 8.5. And Gakpo I've spoken about quite a lot. He's an interesting option in the short term. Let's see if they sign someone else. If Isak plays, could Ekitike get some games playing off the left? Not in the same way that Gakpo does it, but could he potentially take minutes? Yes. I don't mind Gakpo as a punt for 7.5. I'd probably go for him over Eze right now. But long term, I just can't guarantee you his minutes. If you're going to go for a Liverpool defender, Van Dijk's still the safest. But if Bradley's out for a while, I really like Frimpong. He got an attack and return in the Community Shield. We know he's capable of doing that, in that Liverpool team. It's just whether or not his minutes will be good. Right now, Frimpong's starting game week 1. I've got no doubts about that. But again, it's about how quickly Bradley can get back and how many minutes he might take off him. That's why I'm still a little bit worried. But I am less concerned about Frimpong now than I was before this match, because obviously Conor Bradley did play some games in pre-season. I think between Kerkez and Frimpong, Kerkez for me is going to get more minutes, but I think in the short term, Frimpong's better. He's going to be more attacking. Kerkez was okay at Bournemouth from an attacking point of view, but his underlying numbers were not amazing. So Van Dijk's still the safest. Frimpong's where you go if you want a bit of flair in your team. Salah's still great. Ekitike I'd avoid. Wirtz is great. Gakpo's worth a pump. Let's talk about captaincy for game week 1. The main 3 options for me are Salah, Palmer and Haaland. But if you want to go ultra differential, then look at Jarrod Bowen as well, up against Sunderland away. He is 19.4% owned overall. But in terms of how many people will actually captain him, that's going to be very, very low. The only thing that might slightly put me off, as much as playing Sunderland is a great fixture, is it a great fixture in game week 1? Away from home, first game for Sunderland back in the Premier League. That stadium's going to be absolutely rocking. I'm sure Bowen will come away with a return or 2 because he's that good. But maybe if you're ever going to avoid a fixture like that, it's in game week 1. But that's for people that want to go mega differential. Otherwise, you play safe with the premiums. That's Salah, Palmer and Haaland. My favourite captain since the game launched in game week 1 has been Salah. Bournemouth, I don't think are going to be as terrible as maybe some people are making out. But we have to acknowledge they've lost all of their defence. Kerkez is gone. Howson's gone. Zabani's now going as well. That's official at the time of recording. They've lost Kepa as well. I think Petrovic is a good goalkeeper. There's some concerns there. And ultimately, it's very difficult to back against Salah when he's at home, unless someone else has a much better fixture, like out of Palmer and Haaland and Saka, etc. And I just don't think that's the case in game week 1. But Bournemouth at home is not so good that you have to go for Salah. If you want to go slightly differential, then look at Palmer or Haaland. I actually think Palmer's slightly better than Haaland. I know what people are saying about Wolves. They haven't won a game in pre-season. They finished 16th last year. And in terms of the defensive performance between Bournemouth, Palace and Wolves, Wolves were the worst defence as well out of those 3. So I do completely get the Haaland pick. But again, Palmer's at home to Palace. And he's a midfielder, so you've always got that extra point for a goal, extra point for a clean sheet. And we know Haaland's capable of getting huge scores, absolutely. And if it was at home, I'd probably have Haaland ahead of Palmer. But for me, I think Palmer's better game week 1. I'm going to keep the faith in Palmer. It did not work out well for me end of last season when he kept blanking. But his underlying numbers are very good. As with any of these players, they get lots of minutes when they start. I think that's the order. Salah, Palmer, Haaland. Crystal Palace are not an easy team to play against, but I think Chelsea have got a bit of momentum since the Club World Cup. Yes, they've had a bit of a break and not a huge amount of pre-season games. I don't think it's going to have a massive effect. And let's not forget, Haaland and Man City were in the Club World Cup. They've only had 1 pre-season game as well. So it's not like they're better set. So for me, it's Salah, then Palmer, then Haaland. If you want to go differential, it's Jarrod Bowen. So a few people asked me to rank players in certain positions and price points. So let's start with the 6.5 million midfielders. At the top, I still have Njai, but I'm wavering on that quite a bit. I think Jack Grealish could impact his minutes a lot more than people are expecting. And you've got Dewsbury Hall who can play in that number 10 position. All of a sudden, David Moyes has got more attackers to play around with. And I could be wrong about that, but that's how I feel about the situation. So the penalties for Njai have to do a lot of heavy lifting here. Because last year he was 80 minutes per start, which is pretty good. But Sarr at Palace was 84. Mitoma was 85. So he's less than those two. And his underlying numbers are pretty rubbish outside of penalties. 0.17 expected goals per 90 is not great at all. You compare that to Sarr at 0.36. And Sarr's got a 0.23 expected assists. And he plays in a more attacking team, I would say, in Crystal Palace. Now, if they lose Eze, maybe that's not the case. And Everton are buying lots of good attackers. They might be much better under a full season with David Moyes. But I think right now we expect Palace to score more goals. I just think, and as always with these things, you know, it's not like Njai is in first place by a mile. It's always really close, these decisions. Once you're past game week 1, I think game weeks 2 to 5, Sarr is definitely better. Because let's not forget Everton do play Liverpool away in game week 5. Whereas Palace would have Forest at home, Villa away, Sunderland at home, West Ham away. So unless Njai smashes it against Leeds, I'd rather have Sarr from game week 2. And that is why in my latest draft, when I had a 6.5 million midfielder, Sarr was the pick. So I'm really torn between the two. Njai's a nailed on penalty taker with pretty good minutes. Will he continue to be nailed on to start? Probably. Will his minutes continue to be 80 per start? Not so sure about that. So I really like Sarr as a pick. Then you could look at Mitoma. I think Brighton's fixtures are kind of mixed. First 6, they're not bad. They're not amazing. His goal threat's really good as well. He's pretty much nailed on to start. I know Brighton have got a lot of attackers. Not many of them play left wing. And when he does start, he averaged 85 minutes last season. So pretty good. So I really like Mitoma. You can even probably make an argument that he's the best of the three. But Sarr is still going to be my pick. Then I've got Kudus. But again, in a couple of days' time, if Spurs end up signing another winger, I might have to bump that down even more. Is his minutes per start going to be 83 in that Spurs team? Unlikely. So that worries me a bit. Like Kudus, I'm just not convinced by him at all. I think he has to smash it against Burnley at home. After that, I just don't think he's an amazing option. He's fine, but people when the game came out made out like 6.5 million was far too cheap. If Kudus was 7 or 7.5, I'd ignore him completely. I wouldn't even be considering for my team for 1 second. So 6.5 is a fair price. It's not underpriced, and I would avoid him. Enzo Fernandez, absolutely nailed. Not bad for defensive contributions. Has a bit of attacking threat as well. The fixtures are good. I don't mind it, but if I'm going to put in a player that's kind of okay for attacking threat and kind of okay for defensive contributions, I want to spend less money. Tielemans, Paquetá at 6, Anderson at 5.5. That's why I've got Enzo Fernandez so far down. Then my kind of punt player is Gesson at Villa. I think he will get more minutes than other people think in the short term. But again, it is a punt. I cannot guarantee it, which is why he won't be in my team. But his underlying numbers last year in the French league were good. The fixtures are very good for Villa as well. He's the one I would look at if you want to take a punt. Cherky as well for 6.5 you could look at. But for me, the top 3 are Njai, Sarr, Mitoma. That's the order I've got him in, but honestly, I think Sarr is probably my number 1, or at least he will be in a couple of days. Let's move on to the 7.5 million forwards, and before you all shout at me for having Dominic Solanke at the top of the list, let me just explain. That's only if you are super, super confident in his minutes. If you've got any doubts going into game week 1, he's just a complete avoid. And to be honest, you should have doubts right now because he hasn't had many pre-season minutes. If he plays in the Super Cup against PSG tonight and starts and gets 70 to 80, then he's worth considering. If he's benched or not in the squad, just avoid him completely. The reason that I've been so keen on him at other times during pre-season, the fixtures are great, especially game week 1. His goal threat is good. He's probably on penalties now. When we saw what Thomas Frank did with Visser at Brentford last season, could he get Solanke pushing towards 20 goals again? Absolutely possible, especially with a good start like that. But any doubts around his minutes, just avoid him. So actually, my favourite option right now is probably Mateta. I just think the fact that he's now ahead of Eze on penalties, or at least looks like that, pushes him up a little bit. And as I said with Sarr, after Chelsea away, the fixtures are pretty good. Next, I've got João Pedro. Interestingly, last season, Mateta's minutes per start was 78. João Pedro was 81. But I just think at the start of the season, those numbers might be flipped around. I guess there is some risk there because Mateta does have those extra European games now because of the Conference League. But I've got to be more confident about Mateta's minutes than João Pedro. And for what it's worth, I think João Pedro probably starts every game first 6. No issues. He's played so well, how can Maresca not start him? But Delap is there, ready to come on. Early substitutions are surely going to be a thing. That's what concerns me. João Pedro doesn't have penalties. His goal threat at Brighton last season was less than Mateta. So that's why I've gone for Mateta. But to be honest, Mateta, João Pedro and Wood, they're all really close. You can make arguments for any of them being the best. So if you want to go for João Pedro, if you're scared about his ownership, if you like the fixtures, if you think his minutes are going to be way better than I do, the lap's not much of an issue, go for João Pedro. And then Chris Wood is the fixtures play. Nailed on penalties, outside of Arsenal away in game week 4, good. I think it's worth saying, if you didn't watch my videos last year, I didn't have this bias against Chris Wood. I just didn't pick him for ages and he absolutely killed me because I just felt at some point his goal returns had to dry up. And now I still think that going into this season, he scored way more than he usually would have for the amount of chances he got. That cannot continue forever. Now, it might continue because of the fixtures, but I think I'm more willing to bet against that. But again, if you sat here and said Chris Wood is better than Mateta and João Pedro, I would not argue with you at all. All 3 of those players are just good picks. You could even go for 2 or 3 of them, depending on how you want to structure your squad. Šeško I spoke about earlier. I would just avoid him. I don't think he's better than Wood, João Pedro or Mateta. And then Visser could be amazing, but not until we know which club he's playing at. If he's the number 1 striker for Brentford, great. But Thiago's obviously fit now as well. If he's the number 1 striker for Newcastle, brilliant. But when's he going to move? So for now, you've got to avoid him. And then for the £6 million defenders, I've still got Virgil van Dijk top of the list. That's more from a safety point of view. You know he's always going to start. The minutes are never a problem. There's some goal threat there. There's some defensive contribution points as well. He averaged 8.16 defensive contributions per start. You only need 10 as a defender. He's much better than the other £6 million defenders for that. And Liverpool defence was very good last year. Will it be as good this season with all the changes they've made to that team? Potentially not, but they'll still probably be a top 3 defence. So I like Van Dijk. Next to, I've got Aït-Nouri and Frimpong. These are not necessarily players for me. I like to go a bit more safe with my minutes. But right now, both of them are looking pretty good for the start of the season. I'd be very surprised if Frimpong doesn't start the first 3 before the international break. And we know how attacking he can be. We're still waiting to find out exactly how long Bradley is out for. But Frimpong's going to start in game week 1 now. Why would you risk Connor Bradley, who missed the last couple of games? Just not going to happen. And obviously his attacking threat is much better than Van Dijk. And then with Aït-Nouri, in the only pre-season game that City had, Vardiol wasn't in the squad. He wasn't fit. Now, I do think he'll be in the squad for the Wolves game, but he obviously can play centre-back. I think there's a good chance that Aït-Nouri starts the first 3-4 games as left-back. And then after that, who knows? That could continue. Vardiol could play there. Probably depends how the games go. But if you want to take a risk and you don't want to go safe or boring as some people would view it with Van Dijk, Aït-Nouri and Frimpong would be next in line. Gabriel's a bit lower down the list, even though I usually love him as a defender in FPL. His goal threat is amazing, just because of the fixtures. I can see Man United scoring game week 1, Liverpool away in 3, City at home in 5, Newcastle away in 6. You can counter that by saying Arsenal are the best defence in the league, and they are, and that will continue this year, I'm almost certain. But fixtures do matter, and they're quite difficult. The home games are really good. Leeds at home in 2 and Forest at home in 4. So you could argue short term he's not bad. Could score against Man United, clean sheet against Leeds, clean sheet against Forest. But I just prefer Van Dijk between the two. Then Cucurella, pretty attacking last year. 5 goals, fixtures are good. You could even argue that Cucurella should be second, honestly. Safer for minutes than Aït-Nouri and Frimpong. Better fixtures all round. And pretty attacking. So, honestly, you can make that argument that he's second. This is what I always say. These ranking things are always so close. And then I got Kirkis at the bottom because I just feel like if you're going for an attacking fullback, you go Frimpong. If you're going safe, you go Van Dijk. And then I wanted to run through some of your questions. So do you prefer Porro or Munoz to start with in game week 1? Right now, I prefer Porro just because of Burnley at home. It's such a good fixture. And if you get stuck with him or you don't want to sell him, the fixtures are quite good after Man City away in game week 2. But I will say this, from game week 2 onwards, Munoz is probably the better option. So if you want to save a transfer, you could just start with him in your squad and not worry about Porro. I personally just think for my team, I'm setting up in a way where I won't have too many other issues, so I can afford that luxury transfer over in game weeks 2 or 4. And that's why I'm going to start with Porro. But from 2 onwards, I'd probably rather have Munoz. Arsenal, are we really looking to not start with Arsenal players? It's only really game weeks 3 and 5 that's tough fixture-wise. They can score goals, have the best defence. What am I missing? Fixtures do play a part, and cover is just not a thing I particularly worry about. So, for example, right, you look at the defence. It is great, but as I've just explained, I prefer Van Dijk to Gabriel. And I could even make an argument that Cucurella is better as well. So defensively, I'm not worried. Am I going to spend 5.5 on my goalkeeper? No, that rules Raya out. Do I like Saka at 10 million? Yes. Do I prefer Palmer at 10.5? Yes. Do I like Gyökeres at 9? Yes. Do I prefer Watkins at the same price? Yes. So I don't worry about cover. Of course, if a team has good fixtures, you look to see if they've got any good FPL options, but it might be there's a better pick from a different team for multiple reasons. So you can start with Arsenal, absolutely, especially if you're wildcarding like game week 5 or 6. You could go for them. You could free hit in 2, whatever you want to do. You could start with Saka, captain him against Leeds, then sell him after that. I think it's also fine to go without them completely. Is Jared Bowen being overlooked? 1 million less than Watkins, and he outscored him last season. Don't get too caught up in what people are talking about on videos, podcasts, articles, etc. Jared Bowen's ownership overall is higher than Watkins. Is he being overlooked a little bit? Potentially. I do like the saving for the 7.5 million forwards. Like with Mateta, I can get penalties. With Bowen, I don't have that. And Sunderland away is a great fixture. The fixtures after that are fine, but they're not amazing. I think Bowen's a solid pick. If you've got 8 million, go for him in your forward line. He's always so consistent. But I do like the 7.5s, and that 0.5 million at the start of the season can be quite useful. Are defensive contributions overrated? Should it be the main reason behind picking a player? They're not overrated. I think they are going to be important. If you think about Tarkowski, would have got like 40 odd extra points last year. That's like 15 assists almost. I think he would have got 44 extra points. That's like nearly 15 assists. Let's just say it's 10 assists, right? If you told me last season a defender was going to get an extra 10, 11, 12 attacking returns, you'd be more interested in them, right? Does that mean it's the only thing you think about? No. Like any time you're picking an FPL player, you consider everything. Starts, minutes, penalties, set pieces, corners, free kicks, which I probably don't talk about enough. And obviously for defenders now, defensive contributions. So if I'm looking at a 5.5 that's got okay goal threat but no defensive contributions versus someone that's got slightly worse goal threat but much, much better defensive contributions, I'm taking that guy. Because why would I not? It's going to be quite a consistent way to get points for like Murillo, Tarkowski, etc. Is Salah essential? No. Converts Gakpo or Ekitike cover him? No. They're not going to get the same points as Salah does. They could still be good options in their own right, but I already spoke about that with the Community Shield section. Is Haaland the better option? Not in my opinion. Salah has had a bad preseason. I don't care about preseason form, honestly. I can't say that it never affects my picks whatsoever. I am obviously subconsciously aware of, Watkins has got 5 goals in 5 games, etc. But it really doesn't matter. If you went back through every preseason over the last 10 years, there's loads of players that have done nothing in preseason and smashed it from the start, and vice versa. Like, are you telling me that one bad preseason for Salah wipes out 8 years of mega consistency? No. You don't have to have Salah. He's not essential. If you want to go for Haaland, you absolutely should. I do not want to talk you out of making those decisions. But let's be real. Salah's amazing. And he probably will continue to be. Is he going to slow down at some point? Yes. Is it going to be right now? Not so sure about that. If you found that video useful, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Plenty more content to come throughout this season. And if you sign up to Fantasy Football Hub and make use of all the great tools they've got over there right now, there is 50% off. And if you sign up and don't win your mini league, you will get your money back. Terms and conditions apply. All the links you need are in the description below. Otherwise, I will catch you again soon for another video.